Hello, Orville Nation and Nerd TV. Hello, Lord Thoth. Nina is in the chat and on the panel with Peggy, live the Love Shack, Time Prophet. So many fandoms on the chat and on the panel. Jeff, Beeler, good to see you. Person Owo, Susanna, Louise, Sparrow, Corrine, Yes and Again, Haroon, Fox. Don't forget to check out Yes and Again's The Orville 24/7. We're going to be interviewing her about that real soon, guys. And welcome to everybody, Peggy, everybody who's in here, Davey Sound and Holland, everybody who's in here. Welcome, everybody. I wanna welcome you all. We started a little bit later, but thank you guys all for joining us. We're gonna bring in our guests real quick. I do want to talk really briefly about one thing real quick. Forgive me, I'm slightly distracted. I just found out a few minutes ago that a family member had passed from COVID, and I do want to just remind people. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I was just thinking about it while we were backstage, and just remember, we only have a little bit more to go, guys, before people who are vulnerable, elderly people, can have the vaccine. So just do what you can. It's important to do what you can until we get there. Unfortunately, this issue, the issue of the response to COVID, has been affected by politics, and politicizing a national health issue or an international health issue is not the way to go. So everybody, just remind everybody to do what they can. Just protect those people who are vulnerable right now, for just a few more months, because there's a lot of people out there walking around, and people don't realize this, but there's a lot of people out there walking around who have already been vaccinated as part of the trials. And the doctors who are in charge of, those trials are giving extremely good indications that the vaccine works pretty well. It works very well, actually. So with no further ado, I am going to bring in our colleagues one at a time. And I want to introduce, let's see, ladies first. And I want to introduce our Starfleet meteorologist, Katie. Hello, Katie Nicolau.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. PJ, hugs.
See you. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I just, the last minute, I was thinking about it. And Brian was, we were talking about something about it last backstage. So,
yeah, no, it's really important.
Yeah, everybody just do what you can until it's just a few more months. I know it's been a pain in the ass. 2020 was all fucked up, everybody. It's all screwed up. It's only going to be a few more months, guys. So let's just protect that part of the population that needs protecting.
And if we do it right, we can do a giant end of 2020 celebration with fireworks, unless you're on the west.
Yes. And I want to bring in a guest, a friend of our community who has not been on the channel before, but it's been a while since I've been wanting to invite her. I want to welcome Nina Infinity. Hello, Nina.
Hey,
welcome.
I'm so happy to be here, PJ. Thank you so much.
Finally
but also,
see you.
I know, but also I'm so sorry for your loss. It's terrible.
Oh. I didn't mean to bring it up right now at the beginning of the show, but I just thought
it's okay. It's okay. We love you, PJ. And I mean, obviously, if there's anything we can do, please let us know. And just know that we love you. And I totally agree with you about everything you just said about the virus. We got to protect everyone, and we got to do what we can. So and again, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, all is good, and thank you. You're looking all Halloweeny there in the background, huh?
Yeah, I'm a big Halloween nerd, so
yes,
I'm
the greatest.
So it is.
Awesome.
It really is, Katie. And also nice to meet you, Katie, because this is the first time I've been on stream with you. So nice to meet you. I'm so excited to be here. Talk some Dark Matter, which is one of my favorite shows. I love Dark Matter.
And I wanna bring in science fiction author Dr. Adega Outlaw, our good friend Dr. Adega. How are you?
Hello.
Hey.
And I have to join the voices. I know you don't want to talk about it, but you know what? You're our friend. You're my friend, and anything you need, anytime. Sincere condolences to you and your whole family.
Thanks. Well, it's just when you think about the reason I mentioned it is because there are people, and people have argued with us on social, on YouTube panels and on social media. You never know when somebody's going to go, right? Mm. But from a health care worker's point of view, there's people who you definitely would think are not going to go from the flu or are not going to go for some stupid reason, and they're going and they're leaving before their time. So there is something about this virus that has to be taken seriously with part of the population.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I want to put up I'm going to put up something to introduce our next guest. And our next guest, before we bring on Joe, is somebody you guys all know. He and his brother Shane are good friends of the channel, and they've only been here on the show once. But I want to introduce Brian from the POPCAST. Hello, Brian.
Everybody. So I'm sorry, PJ. Before the show, I was making light of COVID because I currently have it, and I was not aware of what was happening. I apologize.
Absolutely. No. You were not making light of it at all. You were just talking about your experiment.
Well, I said, my experience was mild. So in comparison, I feel sort of like a dickhead right now.
No, you don't. No, absolutely not. I just found out like a minute before we connected about it, though.
Man,
just a minute before. So,
speaking topically, my whole family right now has COVID. We've had it for about a week, so.
And we are glad that you guys seem to all be okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the reason I have this Save the Gate up because I'm gonna put up the link to the SaveTheGate.org. So you guys can all go there and sign the petition to save Stargate. Well, to bring back Stargate. And I'm gonna bring on Joe right now. I want to introduce everybody. Joe Mallozzi, executive producer of Stargate, and of course the creator of Dark Matter. Welcome, Joe. Good to see you.
Hello. As I know it's already been said, but I offer my condolences as well. And exactly what you said is something that I've been saying on social media and occasionally getting raked over the coals as well. Please take this virus seriously.
Yeah. Not much longer. We're close to the finish line. It looks like so.
It does seem to
be. Hang in there, everybody. Hang in there. 2020 is almost done.
It's almost over.
We'll need to make commemorative T-shirts, I feel.
I know it was funny because somebody the other day on Twitter had a picture up of like them at Walmart with like Christmas trees behind them, and they were like, "No, it's not even Halloween yet. Please, not yet." And I'm like, "No, I want this year to be over. I'm glad to see Christmas trees. Yes,
bring it on.
Bring on Christmas."
I do want to, before we jump into Dark Matter, I do want to real quick just take the opportunity that I was talking to Brian the other day, and that's why I invited him on. Brian, do you want to tell the audience and just tell Joseph about your Save the Gate, yours and Brian's initiative?
Yeah. So we've actually been gone. We were gone for like 5 months. not sure if anybody noticed. We were gone for a while. We're not doing any videos or anything, and it was because at the start of the pandemic, things went crazy in our personal lives and work and family stuff, and just insane levels of pressure. And then we pushed through it. We put out a video that was sort of about sci-fi and the pandemic. Didn't do too hot. Plus, we got like weird copyright strikes for stuff that should not have been strikes. So we were fighting with legal about that. Finally, we got all that cleared up. And by the time we got that cleared up, we were just too busy and sort of in like personal weeds. And so when we started talking about it a few months ago, coming back with a video, I said, Shane, I think that we just need to come back with the video we've been wanting to make since we started our channel. Because like 3 years ago, excuse me, 3 years ago when we started first making videos for another channel, you know, our goal was to make Stargate content, but we didn't have the audience, especially given that we were making videos on a channel that wasn't about Stargate. And then we moved over to the POPCAST and we started our official POPCAST channel like 2 years ago or so. And we wanted to make Stargate content. And the audience wasn't there. Our audience was all like Star Trek and Marvel stuff. But we started like peppering in Stargate because Stargate's my absolute favorite thing. If you can't see it, but right here is a giant original Stargate poster from the movie in 1991. And I got it when I was 17 or 16 by taking it from one of the poster things outside of a movie theater.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So cool.
I'm not proud of myself, but it's been a long time, so I can admit this
Savage.
crime. Anyways, so I've had that poster since then. And when we decide we're going to come back in, you know, a few months. We got to start working on this video. And we said we're just going to come back with the video we've been wanting to make for 2 years, and we want to start it with this whole petition thing. We want to really push as much as we can. We sort of got a taste of it with the tweet storm we were part of with Joseph, and that was awesome. But we wanted to like really make it a thing, and so we said, okay, we're just going to come back, and hopefully people respond correctly. So we bought the domain name. We checked with our lawyer, which he was like, yeah, you're fine. It's fine. No one cares about Stargate. I was like, that's not true. Everybody does. But I guess legally speaking, they don't care if you make a petition. And then we made the video. And it took us a couple months of writing and checking and doing audio and music and stuff. We do everything on all of our videos basically from scratch. And all the graphics and 3D modeling and all this insane stuff. By the time we released it, you know, it was a couple weeks ago, and here we are. And I think the petition now has like almost 20,000 signatures, which is cool.
I just signed it.
Wow.
Yeah. Our video is closing in on 100,000 real-time views right now, which is not our best. You know, usually by this time, after 2 weeks, a video probably usually has more than a couple 100,000 views. But the fact that we were missing for 5 months and came back with a video and still got almost 100K in a couple weeks is pretty good. So I think people are responding well to it. Although some of the comments are weird. They're like, no, let it die. Look what happened in Star Trek. And I'm like, we can't let every franchise die because Star Trek has troubles. You know, come on, guys. But that's where we're at.
Any thoughts, Joe, on when you saw this? I'm not sure how informed you were.
I think you guys put together and I think we've kind of discussed this privately over sort of DMs recently.
Yeah, we did.
Really the best, most concise, thoughtful videos regarding Stargate. You know, I did point out there were a few kind of things that
right.
it's all you didn't get right, but basically the industry kind of works a different way. But you know, I did say that, you know, hopefully in the future we hopefully won't need to do another big social media push. But if we do, we could definitely join forces and kind of work in concert.
Yes.
And really sort of maximize our efforts that way.
Yes. Yeah, we actually originally wanted to reach out to you when we decided to do it. but we didn't even know when we were gonna release it. We didn't know how long it was gonna take. We didn't want to we didn't want to start work with people and then sort of flake on them when we can't get this done this week and we can't get it done that week. And we were flaking on ourselves trying to get things done and keep our personal lives intact from imploding. So that's why we decided next time when we have more resources, we're definitely going to team up with people again.
Right.
I just love how I shared it on Twitter just now, and people are already like, oh, I don't want Stargate with 2020 sensibilities and like all these kind of weird comments. And it's like you said, I just feel like we definitely do need to, I think, recreate certain things for new audiences, but have our voices on there, like people who love the original content. And that's what the problem is with Star Trek and stuff like that that's happening, is that it feels like the people who are making them right now aren't true to the source material. And as long as you stay true to the source material, what's wrong with having more Stargate? What's wrong with having more of all these old shows that are amazing,
And the way I see it is like with the new Star Trek, if people don't necessarily want to watch Picard or Discovery, they don't have to. It's kind of like you can still enjoy your fandom the way it is. No one's forcing you to watch it, but if you want to watch this extension of your fandom, go for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like, honestly, why wouldn't you want more content? You can decide for yourself if you like it or if you want it to be in your personal canon, and no one can tell you that you're wrong. So
Absolutely.
I totally understand that. And of course, I would rather there be something than not be something. But on the same note, I could totally understand why some of the detractors when it comes to current Star Trek have an issue with it. Because our channel, we've made, now thousands and thousands of hours of content about Star Trek. And the thing is, it has definitely changed. The canon is not 100%. They do ignore certain things. We make entire 20-minute essays that take us a month to do about this exact topic. And while we still love Star Trek, we totally understand why there is a divide between, I guess, old Trek and new Trek. And why there was a divide between old Trek and new Trek in the 80s and then the 90s. Every time there was some new version of it, someone had an issue with it, right?
Yeah.
This particular time, because everybody has a voice and there's this giant platform now, it's no longer 1993, people can actually complain about it a lot more than they could when Next Generation came out. So I don't think this particular old versus new is going to go away the way the other incarnations of Star Trek did. And
so guys,
that's okay.
I'm just going to ask that so we try to stay on track from now on for the
Can I just add one more thing to that conversation, Joe? Just a little capper. I can't really speak to it because I haven't really been following Star Trek, although I'm sure they're all the series are great in their own way. The difference with Stargate, however, is that we're talking about Brad Wright, who's a co-creator of SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe, bringing a new show. So it's not going to be a totally different creative team. It's going to be someone who is very immersed in the canon, who knows the canon, and I guarantee will not take it in another direction. So
nice.
Joe, didn't MGM when they were first, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but when they reached out to Dean Devlin about doing another trilogy for the movies, and he was like, well, yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to ignore SG-1. They were like, oh, no, thank you. Never mind. We're good.
I don't know if it was MGM who said no, thank you. I know a lot of the fans were. I don't think they necessarily said no, thank you, but certainly they were upset at the notion of ignoring. What is it like? It was like 17 years of established canon. So,
and then the project got canceled. Right?
Yeah.
So,
for whatever reason, I don't know why.
Right.
But, yeah.
So I just want to say thank you, John Burns. John Burns definitely wants to see more Stargate and wants to see Matt McGruber on a future episode of Stargate. Okay. Thank you, John. How did you guys feel about how the episode started out? So we start out the episode with the android kind of, welcoming today to all all the crew. What do you guys think about that?
I want to know if the android just came up with that on her own, like woke up one morning like, I'm gonna give everyone an announcement, or like, is that built into the program? Any?
I think. Well, I can tell you that it's a hint or an indication that she's not your typical android. That essentially she is able to take some certain initiative and kind of read the room and act accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what kind of yeah.
Plus,
and also it's something that I always like to do in episodes is bookend. So we start off the episode with her introduction, then we end the episode with her good night. That really ends with me telling her to shut up.
Right.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, I love her character, and I don't want to spoil anything for you, Katie, because you're new to it, but just seeing her character development through the seasons is absolutely wonderful, and she's a great actress, and I just loved every time she's on the screen. So I was like, yes, more of her, please.
And I want to point out what Joe said, that 6 actually makes a reference to how our android's a little special in the episode at one point.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually love that arc, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I think Joe knows what I'm talking about. The arc with the android and how you guys started getting into the rights and all was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, originally she was intended as a minor character, but the scripts kept coming in short, and I just loved what Zoe Palmer was doing with the role. So whenever I would have to write an extra scene, it would always be an android scene, and then eventually that gave kind of rise to her arc.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, and let me point out, we've been comparing franchises very briefly. Let me just point out that the more I rewatch this, because I'm rewatching every episode like 2 or 3 times for our discussion. The more I appreciate the writing, Joe, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
It's and the intricacies, like when you go through it again and again, you start to see the intricacies of the writing, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you. I mean, there's a point, and I think I mentioned this in the previous video, in this episode where the android says something in a way that seems kind of odd. And I remember checking after the episode aired, the fans were like, what did she mean by that? And other fans going, oh, it was just, nothing was intended. In fact, actually, you'll find out later this season why she said what she said. But, there are little breadcrumbs sprinkled throughout every episode.
Yeah, there's lots of breadcrumbs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, can I ask you about the bridge? How much of that was physical, and how much of it was like digital green screen?
Yeah.
Oh, out the front?
Yeah, no, not out the front. Like this exact shot here.
Oh, this is all built. The entire bridge was constructed.
And then out the windows was green, right? And you guys.
It was actually quite funny because we ended up. I think I mentioned as well in a previous video that the art department ended up spending like something ridiculous, like $10,000 on this star field that looked terrible, and we had to just scrap it, and we ended up using, I think, just a black velvet curtain and tinsel, which is what we used in Universe, and it looked infinitely better. So
wow.
But in this case. Yeah, when we were in, it was really weird because it came from, I think, Saudi Arabia, and all the instructions were in Farsi. They couldn't figure out how to work it. Anyways, but this is all obviously visual effect. The entire sort of FTL, what you see out the front is all
right. That's so interesting because Shay and I can't talk about it a lot, but we visited the set of the Orville, and they had a similar thing where the whole bridge was created like. It was actually
a virtual bridge. Yeah.
It was the whole bridge. Everything was there. You can click. Everything was buttons were active. It was insane. It was like a Disneyland ride or something. But then out the window, you had two different things. You had one giant green screen curtain.
Yeah.
But then you can pop down a black curtain that had the little white dots.
Exactly.
Like the
yes.
glowing thoughts. You can pop that down. So you can have like the Starfield and completely avoid any VFX, or pop down the green and add all your VFX. It was really cool.
Absolutely. The only difference, I remember in Stargate, we actually had it was rear screen projection for our FTL. So our FTL visuals were practical.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah. I loved all the visuals for this show, and I especially loved the sets. And that's one of the things that I really liked about the show was that you could tell how much, time and effort was put into designing all these sets. And I love that about it, that it's not just like everything is like all CG, and there's a substance to it that like you feel like you're there. It just makes you feel like you're actually part of that universe. And that's why I really like it.
It feels tangible, even through the screen.
Exactly.
Joe, the Time Prophet in the chat asks, if the show were to run for longer, how would you have explained the android getting older? Want to tackle that?
Well, really, in my mind, the show would have ran 5 seasons, so any aging wouldn't have really been discernible.
Gotcha. Thanks, John Burns. I'd like to thank the producers of Stargate. Will have the opposite of a 2020 outlook, as well as the cast. They'll be like, I want to explore. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, John. Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you, John Burns. And so we immediately kick off. Well, we kicked off with the scene where she's saying good morning to everybody, which, by the way, by the end of the episode, 3 is tired of, and he basically tells her to knock it off. And we see here that in a few moments later, they're all having breakfast, and eventually 3 gets stuck at the stuck by himself because he is hinting that why don't they all go their separate ways. And here it's it's really interesting, Joe, because you have on the one hand you have this the contrast of them all getting together for breakfast, and then he's wanting to pull away from. He wants to break them up and sell the ship.
Yeah, I mean, very much that mess hall table was like the dining room table I saw, and they were like the extended family. And at the very beginning, they're like very much a dysfunctional family. No one's getting along. And 3 is very much the outsider, the guy who's always looking out for himself. And he's the guy that viewers really hated. Like, I think it took him until episode 7, really, until they actually started to warm to him. So
he was really annoying to me too. I remember that.
Him at this point.
You did a good job making him annoying, Joe.
Well, let's circle back at the end of the season and see where you are at.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember, like, when I was watching it, like, I was like, he's really annoying, but I can tell that something is going to happen where I'm going to switch, flip a switch, and I'm going to be like, oh, I love this guy. Like, I just can tell that it's building up to something.
It's funny because Anthony Lemke, the actor, is so different from 3 in that he always loves to engage people. Like, whenever I would bring someone to set for the first time, like, all the cast would of course be very friendly, but Anthony was always the one who basically approached and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you studying? And really engage. So it's interesting when you always talk about which characters are like which actors are like the characters they play. He is very unlike 3.
That's so funny. That makes him even more of a great actor, because when you're like, not like that character, it's like you're playing it the opposite of yourself. That's great.
Yeah.
Joe, I see here Jeff Beeler's comment. I actually think 5 would be more approachable to conspiracies. And it brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you was that why do you think, and I understand, like, I get it where it goes, but I think some people ask themselves, why is the android not more suspicious? I mean, why are they not more suspicious of the android as being the problem instead of one of them?
I think at the beginning they're just so.
I think it gets explained. I think it gets explained. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I mean, I if you have like a better explanation, please, I would love to hear it. I think they're just really so on unsteady ground, and the fact that they essentially wipe her memories as well. So there's kind of a nice little symmetry there. So even though she may have the means to maybe screw with them, the biggest concern here in this episode is the realization that really, if Five has a memory of someone wiping their memories, then it can't have been the android. It had to be one of them. Mm. So that's where really the suspicion focuses on in this episode.
Okay.
And as you go further on, you will see why it's not the android for several reasons, and Joe just pointed out like the number one. Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad it's not her. She's my favorite.
Number 7.
Well,
yeah.
So now we see, and then we see just a few bit, and I'm gonna try to. I don't want to interrupt your conversation, guys. I'm just gonna try to keep you guys on track, or everybody on track. Mm-hmm. And then, but I will let you guys talk. So I apologize. We see that right after breakfast, we see that Five. I think she's like. It feels like she just wants to be in her own little safe space, and she goes exploring the vents.
Well, I love how right before that she explores the vents. That was her like last resort, because what she was trying to do was she was trying to actually like, kind of talk to all the crew and be like, hey, you want to play a game? And hey, like, you want to hang out with me? And everyone was just kind of like dismissing her, like, oh, this little girl, like, get out of here. Like, we all got things to do. And it was like her last resort was like, fine, then I'll just go and explore the ship, and I'll just go and explore the vents because nobody else wants to hang out with me. And that it was like a happenstance that she, turned out to do that. And that was really cool.
It's like a mischievous child where you're like, oh, hold on, I gotta do something. Just entertain yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna go crawl in the vents. Like, I get that rebellious nature.
Yeah.
That scene also, I mean, she's trying to engage, and everyone is kind of doing their own thing. And that scene where she walks up to the vent and she turns to the vent kind of parallels Four's moment, and I think it was episode 1, where he is walking down the lockers, and it's like almost instinctively he goes to that one locker, he finds the ring. It's kind of the same thing. So you get the sense that she's actually done this before.
Right. It's very true.
And of course we see that what happens is she goes. And I do want to point out that we see several of the characters being pulled towards things, unconsciously being pulled towards things. We see that 3 is going to be pulled towards the vault. We see that 5 is pulled towards one of those tunnels that brings her to finding the boy. And they go further. Joe goes further into that down the road, into that story.
4 always goes to the puzzle box.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get to this in a little bit, but like at the beginning, like when I started watching the series, I was like, ooh, what's behind the gate? Like, that's all I cared about at that point. I was like, I just want to know what's behind that thing.
Pop it open.
Cool. Yeah, open it.
Now, Joe, can you talk briefly about who is doing the writing? And we're in episode 3. Are you doing all the writing? Is it you and Paul? Is it?
Well, I mean, I sat on this idea for the show for, I want to say 7 or 8 years. So I had all the stories planned in detail, especially for the first season. So we got into a room. It was my former writing partner, Paul Mully, and Martin Garrow, who is a creator of a show called Blind Spot and is just incredibly busy in LA. And we got together and we broke the stories over 2.5 weeks. And this was actually Martin's episode. And then, as any showrunner will do, I basically tweaked it, for production purposes and just for voices, because as a freelancer, he wrote the script and he went on his way. And the script will always undergo changes once you go into production, especially as you get to know the actors and what where their strengths are. So this one was a Martin Garrow joint.
Oh wow!
Awesome. Can I ask, just out of curiosity, like, did you have a favorite character? Like, who was your own favorite?
Whenever someone asks me this question, I always say the same thing. It's not like picking your own kid, favorite kid. That's easy. When it comes to the characters, they were all my favorites.
Aww.
That's sweet. I don't believe you.
Because I'm watching this episode by episode, week by week as we do this, I was really surprised at finding a dead body. I didn't think that was going to be what was there for some reason. So
wait, you wait until later this season.
Yeah.
Surprises will be coming your way.
Oh, I love it. This is the perfect month, I feel like, to be watching Dark Matter. It's like the spooky season, and like all the surprises are really, really top notch.
Thank you.
Joe, with regards to Kareen's question here, how close, like, when you see it on screen finally, when it translates from paper to to the production, and then finally on screen, how close is that how close is it to what you originally imagined? Or is it better, or is it worse, or is
it really depends. It really depends. I mean, a lot of the time, what I found myself, for instance, in this episode, I'll go back and I'll be like, editorially, there are things that I would have done differently. The timing of certain things I would have done differently. So that's the kind of stuff I get hung up on. But in terms of characters, it's always a pleasant surprise. I mean, in terms of Koreans, which character was most like what you imagined in your mind? I'd have to say 5. Jodelle Ferland was the first person that came to mind when I was casting the role. And then as I was writing the scripts, I thought Jodelle would be perfect. And she was, and she just nailed that. The other one really was Anthony. And as I said, when we came time to cast, we always had 2 or 3 choices for all the roles, but Anthony was far and away. He was 3 as far as I was concerned. If we couldn't cast him, then I would have been crushed. Also, actually, I want to say all the characters, but in another character is really that comes to mind is Melissa. She was very much what I imagined for the role.
Perfect.
And I imagined her. Physically everything, and then I know there was another actress up for the role that the other producer liked, and it was a bit of a battle, but she would have been wrong for the role. So I'm glad. And then on the other hand, like I said, the android was always in my mind kind of a fun character, but Zoe just embraced it and made the character her own, and she far surpassed expectations of what I had imagined for the android.
Do you want to tackle Lord Thoth's question real quick, Joe? Who was the character that was toughest to write for?
Toughest to write for? To be honest with you, in that first season, it was probably one. Just because, all of the characters kind of, I sat with the characters for quite a while, so I knew who all the characters were going to be. But one, just in that first season, it was a bit of a, I don't want to say a learning curve, but he turned out a little differently than the character that I had originally envisioned. I mean, originally I envisioned a character like, if you ever watch Farscape, the John Crichton character, who was kind of like kind of a goofier character who was often in over his head, and one was like that, but in many ways different. How can I put it? Yeah.
Great. I did see a comment here from. They did actually they did say what the injury was, Jeff. And the android does go ahead and say what the injury is.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he mentioned the fact they didn't do more forensic and they couldn't match it to like what the bullet was. And ultimately, I mean, I guess that's true, but ultimately, even if they would have followed that course of action, I can say, and it's not a spoiler, that it wouldn't have amounted to anything.
Interesting.
Could she have done that though? Like actually, like done forensics, like on the body? Like she's not a medical android.
No, he means on the bullets.
Yeah.
Oh, on the bullets. Oh, I see. I thought you meant like doing actual autopsy or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if you have that much time in a show to even go through all that.
No, you could, but
I guess like some one-liners, some throwaway lines about the. I like how fast-paced the show is. I think the writing is superb for that reason. It keeps you going. You know, my wife hates sci-fi, but I got her to watch Dark Matter.
Bless your heart.
And after those first couple episodes where everybody's confused, not just the characters, but also the audience, after those first couple episodes, it really starts to become addictive. And my wife hates sci-fi, okay? Me,
wow.
I am the biggest sci-fi nerd of all time. My wife just doesn't like it. She likes
How'd that work out?
Murder porn and history. In fact, you give her some history docu, drama where someone is killing their husband, it's like game on for her.
But that's so cool though that she doesn't like sci-fi and she got into this show.
Yeah, but she got into this show and Supernatural. Those are the only two shows I've ever gotten her to watch consistently. Every other show, it's like 2 episodes and she's like, this is too much. Even Stargate, God bless her. Even Stargate, she couldn't get into. And I tried for 17 years, babe? 17 years.
I'll take it.
For 17 years, every
and you still married her. That's
my birthday's in 3 days, and every birthday, my only birthday present I wish for is for her to watch an episode of Stargate with me, and we are now 17 episodes into Stargate Atlantis. We're gonna get there. By the time I'm 57, we'll get through the first 2 seasons.
Oh my god,
that is a quality relationship.
Let's ask Joe: is your whole household very sci-fi oriented, or are they just
not at all? It's actually more comic book oriented. I don't know if you see here some Michael Cho art, and then I got some Alex Ross over there. I've got the big. I don't know if you can see it because it's so dark. It's the Crisis on Infinite Earths giant Alex Ross.
Wow. Are you more of a DC fan then?
No, I've both been Marvel and DC. It really just depends on how busy I am, and I usually pick up as many titles as possible and just kind of drop them as I lose interest. So I usually follow writers more than and artists I like.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's really cool. My walls are decorated with sci-fi and DC comics. Those
nice.
I don't have a problem with Marvel. I just prefer DC.
Yeah.
So like right now, to my left is like Superman, and then Stargate, and then Supernatural, POPCAST, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, Star Trek, Stargate, and that's where it ends.
An excellent collection.
So many fandoms.
Oh, and then one poster right in the back of Rick and Morty, where it's the one where he's it's Rick plus the guy he made, the scientist he made, and the scientist he made, and then Morty. So it's like Inception of Rick and Morty. Remember the little pocket universes? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Great writing. That whole episode was just like.
As you can tell from my background, I'm an anime fan, so actually, I love sci-fi. Anime is like some of my favorite actual sci-fi stories.
So you love Final Space, huh?
Not really. I don't really count Final Space as anime. I think that anime is for me more like stuff like Ghost in the Shell and.
Have you seen Japan?
Cowboy Bebop.
Japan, yeah.
Cowboy Bebop.
My favorite.
Everybody likes that.
Japan Sinks.
Japan Sinks is cool. I love the old school like Galaxy Express 999 and
Nice.
Captain Harlock and Star Blazers, all the old stuff. I really love that stuff like that.
So you had to love Firefly because that was like Cowboy Bebop live action.
Mm-hmm.
I love Firefly, and I'm looking forward to the new Cowboy Bebop live action on Netflix. But I'm trying to lower my hopes so that I don't get disappointed.
Yeah.
So, we see here that that 2 is asking at the end of that conversation of the autopsy. 2 is asking the android for a favor to keep it to herself, and we will get back to that shortly. What she asks, and we also see after that scene that 3 is like spent the episode trying to chum up. Actually, last episode a little bit too. I think chum up to 4 because I guess he sees him as the most powerful ally, and he goes and visits him and he's trying to establish some rapport with him, and trying to garner some support. Joe, I was thinking as we sometimes I bring up an image with somebody's name on it. Do you want to tell us what Vanessa Piazza did?
Sure. Vanessa Piazza's, the title is right there, executive producer. So she was the number 2 at Prodigy Pictures, which was the production company. And she was point person with all the casting, all the actors, and she dealt with all like the if there were any sort of on-set issues, she was our point person on it. And actually, I'm working with Vanessa on a couple of other development projects since, so she's amazing.
Cool. Wow.
Nice.
I'm only a follower of the great Avis, says John Burns. Okay. Hail Avis.
Hail Avis.
Maybe we'll find out who Avis is and see. Everybody wants William Shatner to be Avis in the Orville.
Oh my God.
Oh, that would be so cool. Kind of like how William Shatner was like the big giant head in Third Rock from the Sun, and everyone was like, yeah.
And for everybody who in the chat, people who don't know, Avis is the god of the I want to say, I can't say enemy. I can't say enemy of the Union, but yeah, the Krill people. He's the god of the Krill people. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you guys think about 3 and 3's chubbing up to try to ally himself with 4? Adega, any comments on that?
Oh, I've tried to let our new people talk as much as they could. Normally, I'm a fanboying over all your guests, especially Joe, but I thought, having seen this so many times, it was interesting to see you starting to pull out that, at least the way I understand it, is that 4, he may, at least in 3's mind, look like something similar, and this is where 3 finds out, wait, 4's in it for himself. He plays along. The quiet wolf in the corner that you just don't want to mess with. He can come along for the ride. You give him a piece of bone here and there, but when he turns, he can really turn. And I thought it was great foreshadowing. But for 3, he plays a good part of being, like I said, the disgruntled Han Solo, and
that's totally kind of like that archetype for sure.
Han Solo style.
For me, I think 3's drawn to 4 because he's the human equivalent of a nice weapon.
That's a good point.
I'd probably, if I were into it, I'd go for the human equivalent of a blaster.
I just want to comment on the fact that one of the things I really loved about the show was the balance of the masculine energy and the feminine energy within the show. So you had like these really, really cool, badass women, like 2 and, and 5 even, and the android. And they were really awesome to see. And then you had these amazing men that really showcased their skills, especially like 4's character and how he was just so it was so cool to see how like basically it was like muscle memory for him to do these combat scenes and just to be within his own element in his environment. And it's like as if he hasn't forgotten anything, but you almost kind of think like, has he forgotten anything? But it's just like he's just going through, you know, through everything with muscle memory, and that's really cool. And even and Three's character as well, just this really awesome masculine energy that was brought to the show, and I love seeing that.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up because I do it every week, and I'm sorry, Joe, but you know, getting into this writing thing because I was a doctor for years, I'm experiencing ideas and thoughts and being exposed to all kinds of different writing styles, philosophies, and different things. And the way you've done all of yours is not what's typical nowadays, and I think that's why you have a bigger fan base, because what is being pushed is that you explain everything in a most or at least my experience of what I've been seeing is you explain everything in a most monotone, I would say, manner, to where you're not appeasing anyone and you're not offending anyone. It's just kind of bleh. You know, where yours, when you put it out there, you can see there's mystery and you don't have to explain it right away. Where a lot of people say, please tell us now. Now it has to be explained. Why is this? Why is that? He has a ring. What you have to know now. You have to know now. Here you make people be patient and sit on the edge of their chair and draw out. And it was a thing like we were just showing with 4. We're starting to see, because I really like 4.
Me too.
You're starting to see this character he's dangerous. But we're not told why, other than he can wield a blade really quickly and leaving you on the edge of your chair. And it goes on with not just the episodic type of series, but the ones that have the more saga series involved with it.
I'll tell you the reason we were able to get away with it is when we sold the show, there are 2 ways you can sell a show. One is you can sell it as an original, in which case you get quite a bit of money to make the show, but you get executives weighing in with notes. And more often than not, when executives weigh in with notes, they don't understand. We need to make this clearer for the audience and so on. Yeah. Another way you can sell a show is as an acquisition, which means essentially they pay a nominal amount of money to as a licensing fee to air the show, but they get no creative input. And that was the case for Dark Matter. So essentially, our biggest challenge was always the budget. And I think, you know, as a writer, I always talk about producing on the page. I'm experienced enough to know that, you know, what we can get away with. And I just wanted to make sure that the money that we had for the show wasn't blown on issues with like losing locations, with unproducible elements, but just ended up on screen. And ultimately, one of the greatest freedoms, for the most part, I would say, and we'll get to that later on down the road. For the most part, I was able to tell the story I wanted to tell, free of interference. So, and one of the things I always loved about shows, like I mentioned, The Sopranos and The Shield and those cable shows, is, you know, they were able to sort of tell the stories with, you know, but kind of roll it out in a way that never felt rushed. And, you know, that's one of the things that I loved about being able to, you know, produce Dark Matter, was that I never had that pressure for the most part of, you know, people telling me you have to be more obvious, you have to pay this off now. You know, audiences, this audience poll we took says that they like this character more than this character, so we have to give this character more screen time. There was hardly any of that.
I actually really wanted quickly to talk, before we talk about the new picture, what Corinne put about the respect shown for women in the show, because it is really fantastic and just refreshing to see a new sci-fi show that doesn't just treat the woman as like the sexy draw character. Like, I feel like a lot of the female characters in the show are very femme fatale. Like, they have that air of mystery, and they're more than just like, they're all gorgeous, but they're more than that. And how was it tricky to write and break that almost stigma of, okay, we're going to make them like the sexy woman, and make them into more?
I wouldn't say it was difficult to write. I mean, I personally, you can go one of two ways. You can go sort of what you were talking about and make them kind of the sexy femme fatales, or on the other hand, you can do what I see being done a lot in television today is make the female character so powerful and so flawless that, you know, she's perfection. And you know, and all of our characters, I think, were strong in their own ways. They were all funny in their own ways, and they were all ultimately flawed in their own ways. And that's, you know, what always draws me to characters. And you know, on the surface, for instance, 2 seems like the kick-ass commander, again, on the surface, and she seems like perfection. But like the other characters, it's only later on down the line when you begin to kind of peel the onion on these characters that you realize that that's far from the truth.
Yeah, and to just add on what you're saying, like I felt like 2 kind of was that femme fatale, you know, character in a sense, because she was so, and she's beautiful. She's a beautiful woman, but like, you know, like adding to her costume design and stuff like that, like where it was like she wasn't ashamed to be feminine, like, so you're not showing this kind of like, I know this sounds really weird, but like this drab flat costumes where it's like not showing their femininity, and like that's not what was happening with the show. Like you were definitely showing that this is a powerful woman, and just because she kicks ass like 90% of the time doesn't mean she's not feminine. And she has this kind of like, you know, this maternal instinct towards the crew a little bit. Like she wants to take care of them. She wants to take care of 5. She wants to, you know, take care of the android. And later on, you see that a little bit more and more and more as her character develops. And I thought that was just brilliant. It was brilliant.
Well, I mean, also kudos to Melissa O'Neill, who, like I said, I mean, when I saw her audition, I was like, she's her. This is the one. And again, it goes to my anime influences, because I always imagined to just when I was writing the character as an Asian woman. So it just so happened that she was a fantastic actress as well.
She was, absolutely.
Or she is.
Yeah, she is.
On the Rookie.
Again, another fanboy aspect. When you see her acting, and I'm trying not to give away any spoilers or anything, but there was always that, and I don't know if it was your doing, if it was her knowing what was coming up or may not come up or what have you, but when she acts, she always has that, I'm the boss, but it seems like there's just a little bit of insecurity every time she says something. And, you know, to think of being able to do that, let alone being an actress or an actor that could pull that off, you're right. She was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, one of the benefits that the actors had that is not always the case in television is we had 9 scripts ready for them before we even went into production. So they got a really good sense of who their characters were. It wasn't just a matter of talking it out with us. I mean, they could always come up to the office and I would always talk if they had any questions. But they had those 9 scripts, and there's a progression over those 9 scripts. So they kind of had a good sense of who their characters were. So, I mean, as you said, I mean, that was really Melissa sort of adding that kind of nuance to her performance.
Wow. Thanks, John Burns. 6 is competent to fly the Marauder, so it makes sense he goes to a planet. 5 is better on the ship, again, because of competency, but not gender.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you, John Burns. And we see here that we saw 3 and 4 pairing, and obviously this is a great way that the writing staff is introducing the characters, pairing them off, and we see a lot of bonding here with in this episode actually with 6 and 5. They have several times that they're together, and are you cementing here their relationship in this episode? Would you say, Joe?
I would say yes. I mean, the characters all seem to kind of kind of pair off in different ways. And you mentioned sort of 3 seeking out 4. We'll see 1 and 2 later on. And you know, this is something actually that the groundwork is kind of laid out in the pilot, where she's in the infirmary with Six, and they have that kind of weird exchange, and you see it kind of again develop over the course of the episodes. But this is the one episode where, as you said, we really begin to cement that relationship. That's kind of big brother, little sis relationship.
I love that relationship. It was so cool.
And it's so refreshing not to just see like a romantic relationship, but other relationships that truly exist in real life brought into a show. I love it.
It's funny because you should also check out, there's a Dark Matter subreddit on Reddit, and someone actually posted a really interesting comment. Again, I'm not going to give anything away, but I mean they love the fact that we never sexualize Five. She's presented as a teen, and even though she grows into a young woman, the rest of the family sees her as a member of the family. Right. So, I never really thought about it because, I mean, it just, subconsciously, that's the way I always saw the character, but it was kind of nice to have someone, point out that they like that.
And just to add on to what you're saying, because you kind of see that like a little bit later on, and I really don't want to spoil it, but you kind of see her evolution of growing up, and then there's this one scene, and when she's ready, and then she comes out, and everyone's like, "Whoa, like is that you?" And it's it's really cool. Like I love that scene so much because I was like, "Oh my god, she's growing up!" Like it's so cool to see that.
Speaking of which,
yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
No, that's it. I mean, this was a photo that Jodelle Ferlin, who played Five, just posted today, and I guess that's my comment at the top. Darkly elegant. She's
great.
Yeah, she's
I follow
fantastic.
her Insta. She's like such a cool cosplayer, and she's awesome. And she's from Vancouver, my home city.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a cool picture. I thought I saw that today, and I saw Joe's comment. I thought we should share it. And we have a question here from Time Prophet. Any influences would you say from British comedy for yourself, Joe, in your writing?
I don't know if it necessarily is the British influence, but there is definitely Canadian and British tend to throw it away and have more sort of a glib sense of humor or a drier sense of humor, which is something I kind of always gravitate to. And that's again, occasionally I would get the note, this isn't obvious enough. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's not a note you give me. So in answer to the question, yes, there's definitely a British parallel in the humor.
Let me just say, Joe, when there are things that might not be obvious enough from like you said, from coming up from the high offices, those comments, I think that makes for great rewatch.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you can't argue with executives if they feel that audiences will get bored and will turn it off. In fact, one of the things that we always get is if you can keep an audience to the end of episode 3, then you have them for as long as the show goes on, or unless you make some drastic changes. So this is why there was a scene that was actually reshot at the end of this episode.
Really?
Because the feeling was that it was not dynamic enough. We need that third episode to really, grip the audience. But we'll discuss that when we get to it.
Ooh.
Okay. And I just want to point out, because all kinds of people listen, the more I hear about this, it's fascinating. The more all kinds of people listen to our program. So if there's a TV executive out there, who can give Joe Mallozzi Star Wars or Avatar money, do it. Because I have never heard.
I'll take it.
I have never heard a producer. He says it on every show. He wants to keep the money on the screen. How responsible is this gentleman? You guys?
I think most producers want to do that. I just think that, sometimes I find the more money you get to do a show, the more difficult sometimes it is, because, as I said, executives will weigh in with their opinions. And, I know, for instance, Star Trek, what was this? I think it was Discovery. I think they were shooting here in Toronto, and I heard stories how they built a set for they spent $1 million on a set, and then they had to scrap the $1 million set and start again. And, it's just kind of, it almost feels like people have so much money that they don't really know what to do with it. It's kind of mind-boggling.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, that may have done. I don't know, but that may have had something to do with the fact that they changed people running Trek. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure the reason behind it.
Yeah. And so we see here right after that conversation, that moment that they have, 6 finds out that 5 has access to some memories, and so he wants to know why 2 has not shared it with everybody, and 2 says that she had to kind of confirm she wanted to study the situation before releasing it.
Yeah. And gives you a sense of who the character of 2's character, and the fact that she plays things very close to the vest.
And that's what I mean by her maternal side. It's as if she almost wants to protect the crew, and especially 5 from if she is having these dreams, and if that can be used against her, for her own safety, that she should be keeping that to herself for now so that she can protect her.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I got the vibe that 2 and 6 were both being maternal and paternal to 5, but in their own unique ways. And that is so great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brian, were you going to add something there?
No, I was agreeing with Joe, and I think that someone should give him a lot of money, because so far every Joe Mazzoli TV show I'm a huge fan of, and if you can get my wife to like a sci-fi show, then you're a winner.
Fantastic.
Yeah, apparently you're a miracle worker.
It's all about, and Joe, that's like what you said. It's all about getting them past those first 2 episodes. You're good to go.
Three episodes.
3 episodes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I always say to people too. When when I try to get somebody to watch a new show, I'm always like, well, watch the first 3 episodes, and if you don't like it, then just stop.
So they have a brief discussion here about 5 and her situation, and all of a sudden that they find out that they drop out of FTL, and right after that it occurs to one, hey, why doesn't the android do lie detector tests on them all? And I thought that was a very interesting twist there.
Well, we kind of set it up in episode 2 where she's talking to 5, and she mentions the fact that I can detect the pheromones and everything. So ultimately, it's kind of a natural progression. Again, we follow up, and it's like, well, if she can do that, then she's a human lie detector. So let's see what we can do with that.
Absolutely. Any comments,
This guy
Scott?
is great too. I love this guy. One, I think originally one was one of my definite favorite characters because he was just so, I don't know, he was just so cute. I know that sounds really weird, but he was cute.
Agree.
And then, of course, at the end of this episode, I was like, ooh, more of him.
That's what I felt about 6.
And thank you, Fat Steven Seagal. Beat up Safe Space. yeah. Hails to panel. Thank you, Fat Steven Seagal.
Steven.
Hey.
I hope Steven Seagal doesn't watch us.
I don't think he would even understand. His grasp of English is difficult.
Okay, so the whole concept of so now one is going to go around rounding up people, and actually it's interesting because there's a hint there. Like there's moments of there's hints where you might start thinking that one is going to take more charge, and like he might start to dabble in leadership. Did you mean to give that impression, Joe, that he might
No, I just kind of meant to give the impression that he's concerned. But more than anything, I mean, that scene where he kind of quasi confronts Tu is actually one of my favorite Melissa scenes, and it really establishes. Oh no, sorry, was that episode 2? So I'm thinking of the wrong episode.
It was 2. It was 2.
Yeah. Sorry. But
I don't know how you keep this in your head.
He's kind of like the 6 and 1 are kind of like the conscience of the crew, and they're always trying to keep everyone sort of on kind of the straight and narrow. So it makes sense that he would be the one to sort of like want to get to the bottom of things.
One of the things I loved about 1 too in this episode was like when he's reading that book, when 5 is trying to like, talk to all the crew, and like she's like, come hang out with me, and he's like reading the book, and he's like, well, I probably read it before, but I'm like gonna read it again because I'm enjoying it. I'm like, that is so what I would do. I'd be like, let me just start rereading all these books because this is so cool.
I know so many people who would kill to be able to restart a book series for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
And the gate, yes, the gate.
This is I want to know what's behind that. I feel 3 and like the want to know what's in there.
You have to wait a little longer.
But you gotta wait.
No.
You gotta wait.
And like Adega said, the 4 goes to the puzzle box, like 2 goes to 5 goes to the tunnels, and why there's a reason for 3 going there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That first episode when 3 tries to blow it open was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
That was so funny.
The whole episode's serious up until that point, and then just he tries to blow it open and doesn't work. He just gets slammed, and then it's like, that was awesome.
Even though like I don't like 3 at the moment, apparently I'm going to fall in love with him, but we'll see. I love the humor that surrounds him. Like, did you write him initially as some shows have that humorous character, or did it naturally just come about?
Oh no, he was definitely. I mean, there's a scene in episode 4 which is quite humorous, which was the audition scene for him, and Anthony nailed it. I mean, all of these characters, when I cast them, I gave them a humorous scene to do as well as kind of a straight scene, because I needed the humor from these characters. And I've often said humor is like a shorthand that allows audiences to really connect with characters. I mean, you look at Stargate and Rodney McKay and Jack O'Neill and Eli. They're all humorous characters in different ways, and yet they all turn out to be fan favorites. I wanted all of these characters in the end to be fan favorites.
Joe, I don't mean to deviate, but since you brought it up, can you pick one of the characters, one of the actors, and walk us through their casting process real quick? To some degree?
Sure. I mean, what happens is we'll pick an actor.
Well, I'll let you pick them.
Well, they're all it's all kind of varying degrees. I mean, we put out a casting call, and our casting agent will read the script, and she'll put together kind of a character breakdown, it's called, and we'll say, this is what we're looking for, this type. And they'll send that out to the agents, and the agents will look at the roster and say, oh, this person would be perfect for the role. So let's say the role of 4, for instance. We opened that up. We said, sort of master swordsman, but we opened up to all ethnicities and all genders. So we had actually actresses and actors audition for the roles. And in fact, it came down to 2, an actor and an actress in the end, and we ended up going with Alex. But what happens is they come in, they get the sides, which are basically the scene they have to read, and they either come in and do it live, audition, if you will, or they will do a self-tape, and they will send that in. And in Alex's case, he put together a self-tape because he couldn't make the audition. And then you get, for instance, for 2, or for Alex, I think we had like over 100 actors audition. And then we narrowed it down to maybe a dozen and we bring them in for a second reading, and then we'll add a second scene. And the great thing is I had 9 scripts, so we could really, get a really good sense of who these, which scenes to choose. And he came in and he auditioned, and then you generate a list of usually 2 or 3, your top 2 or 3, and then you have internal discussions. And sometimes if you have time, you do chemistry reads where, for instance, you bring in, if you want 1 and 2, you'll bring them in, they'll audition the scenes opposite each other. And but we didn't really have time for chemistry reads. So, in the end, it was actually, we had three to choose from. Usually, the network will weigh in, but as I said, our show was an acquisition, so I had one less battle to fight. So it came down to me, Jay Firestone, who's the president of Prodigy Pictures, and Vanessa Piazza, who's our executive producer.
It's really interesting to me that you say that they could have gone either way in terms of gender. Like, is that for every character, or did you have characters in mind that you were like, no, this is a female character? Or like,
no, there were certain characters that I mean, obviously, the character of 1, 2, 3, and 5. I imagined as those specific genders. 6, I kind of could have gone either way, but ultimately I just thought male. But 4 and the android were opened up. They were wide open, so we had men and women audition for both.
That's so cool.
In fact, in the comic book, the android was male.
Whenever we talk about stuff like that, I know, like, I'm weird, but I always think about like alternate realities where like the other one was cast, like, so like, oh, it's just like there's another reality where like the alternate version has been cast.
Who knows?
Somewhere out there's a version called Light Matter, and it's totally flipped.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
I will say this, that you actually made a really good move, Joe, because most of the prominent androids and other sci-fi franchises are male.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting.
That was cool.
And yes, John Burns, Katie is all Prince Joffrey. I want it now.
See, when I read that, I thought of Picard in the TNG episode Rascals, where he's like, I want my father now. And I'm like, oh no.
Funny.
Yes. Okay, and so they start the lie detectors. Oh, there we go. And it's really funny because we see the guy who's being a pain in the ass, of course, and the writers, you guys did such a good job at making him a pain in the ass.
Kudos to Anthony Lemke.
Incredible.
At gunpoint, he has to take the lie detector test. Of course, he doesn't finish it because there's something that goes wrong, and they drop out of FDL. And I wanted to ask you this, Joe. Can you shed any light to the fact? And I just think, obviously, it just didn't go there. The story didn't go there. Can you shed any light onto why they drop out at the supernova?
Essentially, it is a malfunction, as we find out later in the show.
Okay.
Later in the episode.
Gotcha. Okay.
It would be a brilliant move of sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Darn technology. Breaks when you need it the most.
It is kind of an old ship.
Can I just ask?
Well, kudos too to who designed the background. I know that was an actual nebula.
That was
That was really cool.
It was beautiful.
Visual effects supervisor,
real life.
Croft Wilson. He worked on Stargate. He was actually an office assistant on Stargate, and he's worked his way up. Became a visual effects supervisor on all 3 seasons of Dark Matter, and he's done like a bunch of other shows since. He did The Terror season 2 and a bunch of other stuff. But he's just terrific to work with, and the nebula was his idea, just to sort of give it a little, kind of a little visual coherence.
And I have to say, I appreciate this so much that there's areas without just a bunch of stars thrown in. Like it's that is actual space.
Can I just ask you really quickly, because you said that you had been writing this series for a very long time.
I hadn't been writing the series. I had it in my mind for 8 years, and so I was able to work on a lot of the backstories and the stories in 8 years.
Yeah, that you had it in your mind. Yeah. What inspired you? Like, what kind of stories inspired you to come up with this story? I don't know if it's been asked before. I'm sorry, but
it's just influence of stuff I loved. Like I said, I like those cable shows where so much is crammed into each episode. There are twists, turns, shocks, and surprises. You never know where it's headed. I was definitely influenced by anime like Cowboy Bebop. I mean, if you see, Radical Edward very much is a precursor to 5. 7, I like The Bad Guys. Comic books, Thunderbolts. It's one of my favorite comic book reveals where you find out that the heroes are actually the villains. It was just so cool. I mentioned The Shield. I think when we talked about the pilot, the fact that you think you're following the good guys, and then it turns out the good guys are the bad guys,
right?
And you kind of sucker punch the audience at the end of the first episode. So I mean, that's it. I just wanted to continually surprise the audience, but in a way that was earned. I didn't want to do what I find so many shows do, where they'll throw so many surprises at the audience, but it'll never be set up. It never pays off, and half the time it doesn't make any sense. I wanted to make sure that it all made sense, it all paid off, but more importantly, that you kind of like set the stage, so you'll notice there are little hints throughout, so that when you're surprised, you can look back on the show and go like, oh, that was I should have seen that coming.
Yes, and speaking of that, by any chance, have you seen a show called Dark on Netflix?
I saw the first season and loved it.
It's so great.
Yes.
I love that show. I just wanted to ask you that.
Yes.
Cool.
Hey Joe, introducing new ideas and never paying them off reminded me of Lost. One of those shows. It got so good.
I have no comments.
Introducing more and more questions, and every season was more and more questions. After like season 3, I'm like, wait. So is anything being paid off, and then you get to the very end, and you're just pissed for like 3 days straight.
Well, one of the things I didn't want to do is I wanted to set up a bunch of mysteries, but I wanted to pay off some of them along the way and keep, the bigger mysteries kind of outstanding. So I think, it's kind of a juggling act. You want to sort of obviously keep the audience interested, but I mean, you have to give them those little payoffs along the way, or else they just get fed up.
I agree. Yeah.
It's a trail of cookie crumbs to get to the big payoff. Yes. I think that's what I'm really enjoying about the show is it treats the viewers like they have intelligence. A lot of shows these days are kind of like, okay, well, the audience has a very short attention span, so we need to wrap everything up quickly. Like, no, your show actually assumes that we're paying attention, and it's refreshing.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because the note I would always get within the writer's room on Stargate was that they were like, you're giving the audience too much credit. And I'd be like, really? But sometimes it was fair. It was fair. But I remember my writing partner telling me that it was like basically the revelation where I'd always be getting the notes and I'd be like, and he's like, look, seriously, you have to stop assuming your audience is,
smart.
This level.
Smart.
Well, I don't want to say, but I like to.
Oh my goodness! But yeah, definitely keep watching Dark though. I'm sure. I think you'll like it.
I want to.
So TV execs, Joe Mallozzi's mystery boxes actually open up, and there's actually something inside.
Yes. That's why I was like, we need an ending. Like, no.
So they do their lie detectors, and the FTL shuts down. And here's a point here where I think I asked Joe at the beginning that that why weren't they more suspicious of the android? And the android goes ahead and does a very selfless thing here, where she steps outside and to repair. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously, even though she thinks she's going to be okay, there's obviously some danger there. And they come up to there's a situation where they kind of have a showdown, because once the android has fixed it, and then she's paralyzed outside while she shuts down.
Right.
And there's this great moment here, the showdown, which is, I don't know, I thought it was great, and there was also kind of comedic component to it. Mm-hmm. And I want to get to your chat and a question, John, in a second, John. And we see this great moment here where, like we see Five as a kid, but then she comes up with these solutions at critical moments when she has taken all the bullets out of Three's gun. Any comments on that moment, guys? Adega, any comments?
Well, I thought that was cool, but I like that, what was it, 6-second scene later on where you see Three welding his vents so she can't do it anymore. Yeah. That was awesome. I loved that.
I love that shot though, like just the way, because there's certain shots that you do and it really like kind of adds to the scene, and it's like where she just takes it out of her pocket and she just drops it on the floor, and the camera angled, like the way it's done, it's like, oh yeah, exactly. Like that's hilarious. Like I love that effect that you did that.
Yeah, it's again, there's a little bit of foreshadowing when she drops into Four's room in the previous episodes. But I have to say that my favorite moment or beat in this scene, it was scripted, but Anthony does such a great job where basically she tells him there are no bullets in the gun, and you see him kind of like trying to weigh the gun to see if that actually, is it an indicator? Am I missing some bullets?
Yes, I noticed that.
Now, most people who are used to using their weapons can usually, they might not tell at first, but they can, once they start to think about it, they can tell usually if
it's loaded or not.
The weight is right. Yeah, it's loaded or not. Tip for Katie: don't ever try to tell William Shatner how to pronounce sabotage, and you were right. It was young Picard, not young Joffrey. Okay.
Oh, that's right. You know, actually, young Picard, young Joffrey look similar. Never realized that. It's interesting.
By the way, Joe, I thought it was really, really cool. I thought this is something that we hadn't seen before. I don't remember seeing it. If I think about it, maybe a little further back, maybe I'll find something. But I don't remember ever seeing outside of the spaceship where it was somewhat sheltered. Mm-hmm. Like this is an area where obviously people are going to have to go to. It's outside the ship, but it's somewhat sheltered for EVAs. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a very good touch to the design.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, it's a little more protected area, but she has to sort of walk along the hull, and you see it in that kind of wide shot. We sort of come in, and you see her kind of walking along to get there, and then kind of go down the ramp to access it.
Yeah. And Ensign Ricky, hello to the panel.
Hey.
What's up, Brian?
Hey.
Hope all is well. Got here a little late, but been listening. Yeah, thank you, Ensign Ricky. These panels have been amazing so far. Yeah, Ensign Ricky.
Thank you.
Has very much appreciated these panels.
And again, I have to say about that scene that you just showed, once again, the set design was so amazing. So that like when they're outside, you really feel it. You're like, okay, I'm outside in space with these dudes. Like, we're just, it's like, and it kind of brings that element of like, okay, I'm really there with them. And I love that. Like, again, it's not just all CGI and you're like, it just, I miss sets, okay? I miss sets and shows to put more of that kind of stuff in there so that, it's tangible and it's, it makes you feel like you're there. I love that.
Absolutely, Nina. There's only and I don't have the full picture here, but there's only a couple little windows of space that you see above them, but you really do get the sense that they're outside. And
that's again kudos to Lauren. When you see up above, you do get a glimpse of the nebula, so that kind of establishes the fact that we are outside.
And the lighting is perfect for it too, because if you aren't seeing that bright light, it's dark, and it just I love the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't asked this. I don't recall you answering this question, and it's not related to any particular episode, but all of them in general. You always hear of there's this cut, there's that cut. How much per episode are you able to nail real close to the time? How much do we lose of what was shot?
Well, I mean, you always have to. You'll always shoot more than you need. But I mean, you get. You on average you shoot. What is it, like 7 pages a day? 7-8 pages a day, and each scene you have to get all the angles. You get your master, which is your wide, and then you go in for coverage, and then the editor puts together what's called an assembly, and they tell the story. So they choose which shots they will use if you're going to go in close here, and if you're going to come out wide here, if you're going to use a 2-shot here, and so I mean a lot of what gets cut is really kind of repetitive. It's either like the same scene exchange in the wide as opposed to the 2-shot. Then the director comes in and they will know, and in their mind they'll have a cut pattern in their head, and they'll be like, well, maybe instead of using that shot, use this shot. Why don't we use this transition? And then they hand it off to me, and I will go in and I will do the same thing. I will change shots and then it'll go through another round, a final round, and I think so from editor's assembly to director's cut to like 2 producer's cuts.
So you never had to lose any tiny bits of story.
There were, I think, a couple of occasions when we ended up losing a scene when the episode was running long. There was a scene in the pilot where the guys are sitting in the shuttle after they find out that the Razas left, and they have this argument about what they're going to do. And much like the scene in this episode, they end up leaving 3, and they decide they're going to go back and help these people. And 3's like, we don't know those people anything. They all leave, and then he ends up getting up and going with them. And in the end, we decided we could lose that scene, and still the story would make sense. I don't think it's till the episode, I think not till season 2 that we actually lost a complete scene. But I mean, I ended up keeping all those scenes. So when the time comes, I'll make those scenes available as well.
Ooh,
awesome.
Joe, do you want to tackle Corinne's question? Which is your favorite set or part of the set?
Well, it's always the bridge. I mean, I love the bridge. Just visually, I love the bridge. But in terms of writing, it was always the mess hall, because that was the place where they would gather, and they would be more relaxed. They would be eating, they would be drinking, having their coffees, and they, the discussion would revolve around more, more mundane aspects than the big stakes aspects of what they would have to discuss on the bridge. And I kind of like that, because it would reveal more about their characters.
I love those scenes actually because of that very fact that you just said that. Like, just gives the little nuances to their characters, and so like this is how they're gonna react on the big scenes because of what's going on in those little scenes and the little things that are being added to each character.
Yeah.
And Joe, what about Tony's question? What has happened to some of these sets?
They've all been sadly dismantled and turfed. Yeah, because when a season wraps, the sets usually go into storage. Like the standing sets, like the bridge stays up, everything stays up, but stuff like the green screen and the chairs or what have you go into storage. Unless there's another production moving in which case you kind of have to move those. You have to fold the sets. It's what it's called. But that wasn't the case for Dark Matter because we own the stages. But once a show is canceled, you're kind of on the clock because you're paying for storage on these sets that you may never use again. So
I have a couple of questions that are kind of related to each other. One, how did you come up with the name Dark Matter for your show? And two, why the Raza? Because is there an importance or something like that for you that you named the ship the Raza?
Two things I really hate to come up with are titles and character names. So that's why for the show, as I mentioned, last episode, after episode 1, I just had the fans vote. So I would take a piece of dialogue from each episode, 3 pieces of dialogue, put it to a vote. Whatever the fans chose, that became the episode title.
That's awesome.
And then Dark Matter, I just, what is Dark Matter? There's kind of, the sense of mystery around the fact that it, and I thought thematically it just kind of made sense. And then as for the Raza, really Latin for tabula rasa, clean slate. The fact that these characters were,
wow.
It also means like the family.
Yes.
Spanish.
Family.
Right?
Yes, that's also very appropriate. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about John Burns' question, Joe, about how long before did 5 steal the bullets? Because it's not.
Yeah,
we don't see it, right?
We don't really see it, but I mean, it couldn't have been really all that long before because 3 is the type of guy clearly who likes to play with his guns. So, but it was shortly after, they had that conversation where he expresses his suspicions of her. That basically she decides, this guy's a bit of a gun nut. He makes me kind of nervous, and so she takes that step.
And really quick, what about are some of the sets reconfigured for different rooms on the Raza?
Absolutely, particularly the quarters. So that is just one set, the quarters, and you'll notice that it'll be different layouts for each character. Will have a different layout. They'll have different. 4 will have the swords. 3 will have the guns. I think one of them will have like some sort of like artwork. Bed will be facing one way. So yeah, different layouts.
And then we see here the android again, like proving her her worth to the crew and zaps 6 back into back to life.
You scared me with this too because I love 6. I was like, don't you dare. I will have a word with you in the podcast tonight.
Well, interesting. I mentioned earlier that one of the scenes was reshot, and this was it. So in the original script, he gets hit or gets blasted, and one does some CPR, and he's fine. He goes. He's basically back in the infirmary, and they have this discussion. It was felt that we needed the episode to be more dynamic. So we had, we had him go into cardiac arrest. One tries, he fails, and then the android steps in and saves the day. So this was the scene. It's a great scene that originally was tweaked, shall we say.
Did you like the tweak?
I did like the tweak. I mean, it's rarely done. On my productions where essentially we reshoot a scene unless there's like a real issue. Originally, I didn't think we needed to, but in retrospect, I'm really glad that we got this moment with the android. Although she was in the infirmary scene, and the dialogue is more or less the same, except for the dynamic, moment where they save 6.
So we see the end of the lie detection test for 3, and obviously they come to the conclusion that he's not lying. So nobody's lying. So they have there's this scene later right after this with 1 and 2, where one is asking 2, well, what are we going to do about this? And what about their little mutiny, by the way, 3 and 4? But it's basically, understood that they were kind of like looking out for them anyway. They didn't want anybody to die for saving the android. And is anybody surprised at how the scene ended?
No.
Mm-mm.
I said in the first one, I think there's something going on between those two.
Yeah, that's not really ever paid off. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like it's not.
Yeah, you can spoil the episode.
I actually wasn't a big fan of 1 very much because I felt like I was gonna like him a lot, and then just didn't. There's so many characters that you can only really flesh out. There's so many characters, and like that character, I felt like he, I had an opinion of him in the first few episodes, and then that opinion sort of started to drop because he wasn't really around very much, and then he just sort of went away.
But then, what did you think of the last scene of this episode, though? Like when they introduced the other,
I felt like their relationship, or I guess lack of relationship, whatever it is, was it didn't feel. It felt weird, like it didn't belong there. You know what I mean? Which is probably maybe that was the point. Maybe the point of it was she didn't really seem very into it, and he seemed like he wasn't himself. And
no, I mean, what did you think when you meet the doppelganger?
Oh, yeah. It actually made sense. I'm like, I didn't really like this guy, and I didn't really like him, and I knew there was a reason why I didn't like him very much. And I also thought, before I saw the rest of it, I also thought, there must be a lot more doppelgangers out there. Maybe that's the case,
See, touching on that note, I always thought, because you were in 1 and 2, not naturally, normally you'd think, but when I first saw them, I was like, they're both power position players, and at least in my life experience, they tend to be drawn together. The captain of the swim team, captain of the football team, they're drawn together. So that kind of just naturally, in my mind, fits.
I always was like, I think she likes 3. I was like,
yeah, he didn't seem like much of a power player though. He felt like he was gonna be a power player because he was 1, he was awoken first, whatever. But he immediately drew himself to being 2's minion. It was really quick. He didn't really take a very much leadership role. In fact, 3 looked like he wanted the leadership role in those first few episodes more than anybody.
Yeah.
I think 1's the person who likes the leadership role, but isn't one to go out and get it, from what I've seen so far. And that might be why I think he works so well with 2. He likes that leadership role, might not necessarily go for it himself, but will support someone else.
He certainly did.
I gotta say, John, the actor Ben David did a great job, because he looks almost like a different person when he's good and when he's evil. I mean,
mascara.
It's funny you mentioned that, because basically there was one of the outtakes where Anthony Lemke and Melissa O'Neill basically look at a picture on screen, and Anthony's like, "It's Jace Corso. You can tell because he's wearing the mascara."
He needed a goatee on Star Trek,
or a nice little twirly mustache,
right?
Or some sort of tattoo or something, like a neck.
Just a nice snake going down the neck.
Right.
It looks like a spider.
John asks Joe if 4 had been cast as a female, would the name have changed?
Well, 4 would have been 4, but their real name, their actual name, would have changed.
And
another
this
fan thing about the series too is, without giving any spoilers, the way we see one, you're okay. The way we see one, how you handled the two individuals and how it comes out later. I can't think of anything in sci-fi that's similar, and I thought that was really, really cool. Is that yours or is that from the comic?
Sorry, I wrote the comic, so it's.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I apologize for not.
No.
But that was quite unique. I mean, you get a lot of things in sci-fi, that are similar, but that was really cool.
Oh, thanks.
I love this scene. I loved it so much.
That was funny.
I related to this scene.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because it's a Monday, but oh my gosh. This is like my first hint of maybe liking 3, actually.
I love 3.
3 is great.
And I do see one more question here. What?
Children's chess.
Cards Against Humanity.
Well, I mean, 5 is definitely like a Dungeons and Dragons geek for sure.
For sure.
3 is poker.
Ooh.
Sure.
2 is probably poker too.
Maybe.
No, she's bridge.
I feel like.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great review. This is such a pleasure and an honor. I say it every time to go through Dark Matter with its creator. Wow. Joe, is there, at some point we should seriously talk about how to support you to get either a season 4 and 5 or how to get that miniseries.
Yeah, I mean,
this is.
Yeah, what I think really needs to happen is a little time has to pass, and I think I have to get like another show under my belt, because in this industry, it's always what have you done, what have you done for me lately? And as much as we all love Dark Matter, when it comes to executives, the decision makers, it's such a small sci-fi show that it's off the radar. So I just got a lot of work ahead of me still. But
have you but is it you do have the rights though? So it's not.
It rests with Prodigy Pictures that would be interested in doing a show, the production company. So and they thought,
that's why you can't do some sort of what's it called? Not like Indiegogo or Kickstarter and those kind of things. You can't.
I hate to break it. I love the fact that the fans want to do kind of a what do you call them?
Fundraising or whatever.
But you would need the amount of money you would need. It's not like basically you're asking for $3 million to do what was that movie that they ended up crowdfunding for $3 million? I forget. But this is a sci-fi series. You have to rebuild the sets. You have to hire back the actors. Yeah. To do a 4th season, you would need a minimum, I would say, of $30 million. And it's not feasible to expect to be able to
There's a secret billionaire in the comments section.
Yeah.
It wasn't Super Troopers 2. It was it wasn't Super Troopers. It was Veronica Mars.
Oh, Veronica Mars. Yeah, they ended up selling out to that wasn't really much of a success story because they got the money but then sold out to Hulu.
Oh, yeah, and that was terrible. It was a terrible.
But Super Troopers actually did 100% crowdfund, about $3.5 million, and then made a movie.
But that's great. I mean, they I don't know how many visual effects they do.
Not very many. But they had a great milestone that if they got this extra 100,000, they would have a VFX police chase. And someone was like, "Wow, it costs that much?" They actually cost more. They're just giving you that for that $100,000 milestone. We actually talked about in our video. Sci-fi takes I mean, you would have to raise a few million every episode.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So maybe a movie then?
Yeah. I mean, I just there's just so much story I want to wrap up that I would need a miniseries.
I hear, man. I want you to get a miniseries. So maybe, I don't know. Any billionaires out there? Just
Yeah, I'm sure. Jeff Bezos,
There you go. Yeah, tag Amazon.
Joe, somebody did ask before if you knew you only had 3 seasons, would you have done it differently, or how?
Sure, I think I would have compressed the storyline significantly. But then, I mean, I could have done that, but then there are certain episodes that I love that probably would not have seen the light of a TV screen. And, I'm not going to mention which those were, but they were especially 2 of the more humorous season 3 episodes. So I'm glad I got
tag Elon Musk as well. I mean,
sorry?
Elon Musk's like space, so
might be a fan of the show.
Yeah, you might maybe tag him. Everybody tag Elon.
Yeah,
we will do that. We will eventually. That's why we will eventually talk to Joe about doing some kind of campaign, even if we have to do it from the fans' point of view.
Yes.
John's question, really quick, last one. A concept of Cards Against Dark Matter. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, people do Cards Against Humanity spin-offs, like with the Good Omens show. There's the Cards Against Humanity, but it's like actually with the show. So you could probably make it a show-centric game if you have someone with a lot of time on their hands.
All right.
All right, guys. Any final words, Joe, that you want to?
No, once again, I mean, thank you guys for taking the time. Thank you, fans, for tuning in. We're what is it? Almost a quarter of the way through season 1. A lot of surprises coming your way.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, you're making it very hard not to binge this.
Right.
Finish.
I'm glad that you have the the inner strength to be able to kind of resist.
I don't think I could do it.
Way.
I don't think I could do it. So all the power to you.
We'll see if it holds. Imagine you get to season 2 and it's like, I quit.
I'm loving the rewatch, so I mean, you might just go ahead and binge it and watch it again with us.
Yeah.
I gotta give the people in the comments what they want, a fresh, perky view on things.
I like the episode by episode reaction.
Awesome. Well, I'll hold that for you guys.
You got great willpower. Hang in there.
And I do want Brian from the POPCAST to just tell us real quick about Save the Gate.
Yeah, the video, you can go check out the video. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/thepopcast, I think. I'm pretty sure it's the right URL. And then obviously you can go to savethegate.org and or change.org/savethegate, one of those two, and sign that petition. The whole thing is we're trying to get, Shane did a bunch of math, and I think Joe talked to him about it too. And they came up with this magic number. I think it was like 2 million. If we got the petition...
2.5. 2.5.
Sorry, thank you. 2.5. Thank you. If we got the petition up to 2.5 million signatures, then that would be like this magic number that he feels would be strong enough to convince MGM. And he has enlisted the help of a bunch of insiders that we know. Actually, like a lot of people you guys might even know already on YouTube, but I don't want to say their names in case it doesn't happen. And if we get that magic number, then we're going to enlist their help, and we're going to start an Avengers-style dream team of marketers to get MGM's attention. I'm sure Joe would probably be part of that. I'm assuming. I hope Joe.
Absolutely.
If we get to that number. But if we don't get that number, or at least we don't get close to that number, then... we don't want to waste anybody's time, but that's the plan. So sign the petition and watch the video. It'll explain a lot more than what I can explain in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. And really quick, just tell us how many people, tell us how many people you have already on the petition.
I think it's 20,000. Yeah, let me go.
Okay. That's all. Okay. Yeah, that's great. It's a lot. And really quick, Adega, plug your channel, please.
Plug my channel. It just if you want to follow along with what I'm writing at the time, I signed with a publisher and I'm under contract now. I got to produce something every week at least. I try and do more than that, but it's just you're seeing my my new stuff before it goes to print, and I have fun with it. And I've been doing a lot of Halloween stuff lately too. It's not necessarily on my channel, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see every once in a while things that I've collaborated with to come out. But that's
awesome.
Pretty much it.
And thank you, Adega sci-fi author. And Nina, tell us really quick about your channel.
I just recently started it. I just reached 500 subs, so thank you so much out there. Everybody who subbed to me. I'm doing my celebration stream tomorrow. Thank you so much for having me today. And I do just like movies and reviews on movies and TV shows and stuff like that on my reviews. I try to not get into, hating on stuff. Like I don't want to, even though I don't want to, even though I don't like the new Star Trek or like whatever, what have you, I don't want to hate on stuff all the time. So I do, movies and stuff that I actually enjoy. And if I don't like something, I try to be objective about it, about what I don't like about it, not I just don't like this kind of thing. So thank you so much for having me. I would love to be invited back if you'll have me again, PJ. It was a pleasure, absolutely pleasure to meet you, Joseph. And just good luck with everything.
Thank you. I hope you'll be joining us as well in the future.
I would love to. Thank you.
Katie, really quick, your channel?
Yes, so my channel, So Many Fandoms. You see me in the comment section, and I do my fandom forecast, which I have news. There is a new one on the way. We're trying to figure it out in the age of COVID, but with Animaniacs returning November 20th with the reboot, and my extensive knowledge of the Nations of the World song, we're doing a forecast of the world, and it's going to be incredible.
Ooh. Wow.
So that'll be on my channel.
And really quick, I forgot, and forgive me, Joe, that you had a channel, and I was subbed to it, and I didn't even remember these last two times to talk about it.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even remember I had a channel until someone mentioned it earlier on. I mean, to be honest with you, it's sporadicly updated. It's just like behind the scenes, playback videos, and I think no spoilers. There's some bloopers as well that we will screen when the time comes. But I guess I do.
So sub to this aspiring young YouTuber. There is this channel, and there's a lot. I was looking through it actually, Joe. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, Joe. A lot of behind the scenes stuff.
Right? Yeah, Stargate and Dark Matter.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm gonna have to sub right now. It's happening.
Yes, everybody, please sub to all these channels, and I want to thank everyone again in the chat, and to Joe Mallozzi for joining us for this awesome privilege. Thank you, POPCAST. Thank you, Adega. Say hi to Shane, Brian.
I will.
Thank you, Infinity, Nina, Infinity. Thank you, meteorologist Katie. And thank you, Bird of Prey. Everybody, Jack O'Neill, who's looking for Daniel, Corrine, everybody who has been here, the Time Prophet, Nate, everybody, John Burns, thank you so much for your support, John Burns. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, S. Enrique, for the super chats. Live at the Love Shack, Peggy, Tony Rodriguez, and everybody who's been in here. Thank you, everyone. You guys all have a blessed night. Stay safe and wear your masks, and take care of everybody until this is over.
And
bye,
thank
guys.
you, PJ. Bye, everyone.
See you.
Adios, everybody. Bye, PJ.
Wait.
Keep going.
Bye.
It's like the end of that Toy Story 2. Like you just keep waving.